Joining us now, Dietrich Becker, partner at Perella Weinberg. Joining us from our Bloomberg Deals team is Ruth David. Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic year for M&A. Is it going to carry on?
Well, I'd say the general M&A drivers are in good shape. We have low cost of capital, we have a good economic environment, we have good confidence, and we have a lot of private equity capital, and all those things, I'd say, are important drivers. I think we have a few additional secular drivers at the moment. Corporate transformation in response to technological disruption is a huge theme, as is activism, which is on the rise in Europe and which is making many corporates think about their strategy and think about the way they need to reshape themselves to stay ahead of the curve.
You've advised on some of the biggest energy deals, of course, recently, Dietrich. Do you think there's more consolidation to come, especially in Europe, and what forms could that take?
Well, the European energy landscape already has a number of very large players. To me, the theme is less around consolidation and more around focus. If you think about the value chain in energy, from energy production to distribution and customer services, customer solutions, these are all very capital intensive. And I think what we're seeing is an increased focus of capital on some portion of that value chain. So some of the work that we've done has focused on getting companies more focused to one part of that particular value chain, and whether that trend will continue, we will see, but I think there are some good arguments for it.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
It is going to continue.
Less consolidation, more M&A activity.
Okay. You bring up the activists. Must be feeling pretty emboldened right now, do you think? Like Dan Loeb's, they've all had a pretty good run here in Europe, and it wasn't that long ago that people talked about activists sort of out of the side of their mouths here in Europe. They didn't like them, they didn't want them to come and play. They're now coming, they're having a meaningful impact, and they're making companies think, as you say. So what next? Like, do we see more of this? Is this a trend that's now firmly in place?
Well, as you say, it is an asset class that is performing well and that has been attracting increasing amounts of capital. And so I think we have to assume that activism is here to stay. It's been around in the North American market for many years, and it's been a more recent phenomenon here in Europe. But it has been on the rise. There are a number of very reputable firms that are doing this, and the implication for our corporate clients is that they need to stay ahead of this. And so I do expect that we will see more activity. And I think most of our clients are thinking about what they need to do to stay ahead of what we call the activist thesis.
And let's talk a bit about Germany. We've been saying so much around how it's almost the summer of pain, right? From the coalition crisis to the impact of VW's diesel scandal to, of course, the World Cup loss. Can you walk us through the M&A landscape and how is that? And are CEOs more buyers than sellers? What are you seeing there?
Well, look, I think Germany, despite all of those...
that was pretty harsh on the football front, I'd like to say.
Despite all those harsh news, which are harsh for a German to absorb, I think Germany is in pretty good shape overall, and certainly on a relative basis. And the German M&A market has actually been much more buoyant in the last 2 or 3 years than it has been at any time in my career. I don't think there is a particular positioning as a buyer or a seller. I think all German corporates are actively participating in the global M&A market, and we've seen some of the largest outward flows, acquisitions in North America, and we've seen some pretty significant increase in the hostile activity, and frankly also in mergers and other things that are driven by the same trends that we've just talked about.
Just to pour a little bit more shade into the German story, I'm not going to bring the football up. Let's talk. In the last election, turning Germany into a digital economy was actually a feature, and the fact that it was a feature was amazing. We talk about, and you talked about this already, the fact that companies are having to think kind of about disruption and technology and what it means to their business. That just feels like it's sort of Germany. Germany needs to think about that squared. Is Germany behind when it comes to the digital transformation story? Is it particularly exposed to the digital transformation story as a result? And does it therefore have to think from an M&A point a little bit more actively along those lines?
Look, I think Germany has always been a powerhouse of manufacturing, and manufacturing industries are heavily affected by technological disruption, and so Germany needs to think about how it plays on that scale. And I think in some cases has successfully done so. We do have some companies in Germany that are really doing very well on that scale. Is the landscape in Germany as favorable as in the United States? No, it is not. And I think that is why it is showing up as an important election theme. And it is something that I'm sure is going to exercise the government there for the next few years.
Speaking of favorable landscapes, let's go to Britain. There's an Ernst & Young report that says investment in financial services firms fell about 26% last year, whereas in Germany, it increased. In France, it more than doubled almost. What are you seeing in terms of how firms are dealing with this? And do you think there's going to be M&A, they need to cope? What's that perspective?
Look, I think, I moved here 27 years ago because of the fantastic environment that Britain has for financial services, and I think it'll continue to have that. I do think that in reaction to Brexit, there is an increased focus on companies, needing and wanting to be present on the continent within the EU. And I think some of the observations you've just cited are a function of that, and I would expect that to continue, including companies that are currently based in the UK and that do need to think about how they're going to have a platform on the continent.
You're not moving to Amsterdam anytime soon, or Frankfurt?
It's not currently planned.